So today there has been substantial discussion about Lucas Browne versus Wladimir Klitschko. Rumours are that the fight will happen in Germany for the WBA heavyweight title. A title which, as far as I understand it, and it's always very confusing with the WBA because of their various titles, but a fight that I understand it would be for the vacant WBA super title, potentially regular title, I'm not sure. Let me know if you know more. But the fight has actually been listed on Boxrec as a fight that is happening. So presumably conversations are at a minimum at advanced stages, and rumours have been circulating for some while that this is a fight that was being discussed and that this is a fight that was on the horizon. I guess it makes sense for both guys. From Lucas Browne's perspective, he's a guy who, despite being relatively new to the upper echelons of the sport, is not a youngster. He's a guy who I believe is in his mid to late 30s and is probably still in a position where he has yet to earn the mega bucks from the sport. I'm sure he earned handsomely from the Wladimir Klitschko fight. Whether that would be enough to set him up for life, I'm not sure. But this is a fight where one would presume he would get a life-changing payday. He could also look at it as a real opportunity to raise his profile and to make a big statement. It depends where you sit on Wladimir Klitschko, but a number of people believe Klitschko got old overnight and lost to Tyson Fury because he was past it. And if that is the case, a guy like Lucas Browne could capitalise perhaps on a flagging Wladimir Klitschko who has been inactive for a further 12 months since that Tyson Fury fight where he supposedly got old overnight. Now, as you guys know, I don't believe he did get old overnight. I believe he couldn't deal with Tyson Fury's style. That's a moot point. But from Lucas Browne's perspective, the fight does make sense. He's got limited time himself left in the sport, and in front of him is a big payday, a big opportunity against a guy who many relevant people in the sport believe is past it. From Wladimir Klitschko's perspective, I think Lucas Browne represents a good fight as well. He's a marketable guy. He's known as a big puncher. He's coming off a career-high performance. But stylistically, if Wladimir Klitschko still remains Wladimir Klitschko, I think he beats Lucas Browne. And let's talk about that. I guess the starting place for me is Lucas Browne's last performance against Ruslan Chagayev. Now, I've always liked Lucas Browne, but I used to class him in a category of fighters I had called educated bouncers. Fundamentally, I thought Lucas Browne was too slow, too limited technically, too lacking in boxing education and, I don't know, technical skill to make an impression at the elite levels of the sport. I was bowled over by his performance against Ruslan Chagayev. Quite genuinely, I couldn't believe how well he was moving around the ring, how sharp he looked, how well he was boxing from the outside. I couldn't believe the snap in his game. Now, Lucas Browne fans would say that was because he was able to raise his game for the occasion. And if that's true, then Lucas Browne deserves to be legitimately known as a top 10 heavyweight, and he is a risk to some of the top guys in the sport. Detractors of Lucas Browne will say that after the fight he tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. Obviously, there is huge debate and discussion as to whether he was guilty or not guilty. I guess no one will ever know for sure, except Lucas Browne himself. But detractors could say that the hugely improved performance could potentially be linked to those findings. We won't know. But Lucas Browne against Ruslan Chagayev was a threat. He was jabbing well. He was moving well. He seemed to be in better shape. He seemed to have improved punch resistance. He seemed to have, not improved punch resistance, improved stamina. He showed punch resistance and durability, getting up from a heavy knockdown. He came back into the fight. He showed his own power by stopping Chagayev. You know, I thought Lucas Browne looked really good in there when he fought Chagayev. However, against Chagayev, he was fighting a guy who was very slow, who had become very cumbersome, who had become quite flat-footed, and who was always a very small heavyweight in terms of frame. A guy like Wladimir Klitschko, even at his elderly stage, for me has good footwork. Maybe not as fast a feet as he used to have, but very, very good technical footwork. His positioning in the ring, for me, I know he struggled with the range of Tyson Fury, but typically his positioning in the ring is very, very good. And that size advantage that Lucas Browne enjoyed against Ruslan Chagayev, where he was able to establish the jab and box long, would be negated by Wladimir Klitschko's size. I perceive Wladimir Klitschko to be the bigger guy, with the better long range game, with the better jab, with the longer arms. What I'm getting at is, for me, Lucas Browne would have to completely reinvent himself from the guy who looked good when he was moving and boxing long against Wladimir Klitschko. Because for me, that long-range boxing game, where Lucas Browne showed some really improved sides to his game, would play perfectly into Wladimir Klitschko's hands. Vladimir's a guy who wants to stand off at range and work the jab and throw punches off the jab. And I believe that Wladimir Klitschko is a harder puncher than Lucas Browne. I believe that his punches are more, are delivered better, with greater speed, greater accuracy. And that would play into Vladimir's game. Conversely, Wladimir Klitschko struggled with the height and awkwardness and range of a Tyson Fury. Now, Lucas Browne's a very, very big guy, but he's not as big as Tyson Fury, and he's not as big as Wladimir Klitschko. And Wladimir would once again be in the frame of being the bigger, stronger man in there. And for me, having the fight in his home territory in Germany on his home promoted show, we could well see him revert to his jab and grab technique that has served him so well over the years. Wladimir Klitschko, clearly at the age of 41, 40, there are certain elements to his game that may be in decline. But against Lucas Browne, he's not facing a young man himself. He's not facing a man with electric speed. He's not facing a man with electric technique. And I still believe that Wladimir Klitschko would have the advantages in the ring in the majority of areas of his game. I think Vladimir's got more power, more experience, better jab, better footwork. I think his technical construction in terms of the way he holds himself is superior. I think defensively he's superior. Browne's got a puncher's chance. Browne's a big, big puncher. Wladimir Klitschko's a guy in his 40s who's had questionable punch resistance in the past. But, I'd make Wladimir Klitschko a heavy, heavy favourite in this fight. And again, it depends what Lucas Browne turns up. If the Lucas Browne who fought Andrei Rudenko turns up, it's simply target practice with Wladimir. And I think he stops Lucas Browne in 3 or 4 rounds. If the Lucas Browne who fought Ruslan Chagayev turns up, then admittedly it's a more interesting fight. The stuff that Browne showed in that fight, the heart, the grit, the determination, combined with the movement and the improved boxing skills, would be a severe workout for Wladimir at this stage of his career. Having said that, regardless, you'd still have to favour Wladimir Klitschko here in a percentage call. There are certain fighters out there you could pick to have substantial advantages over Klitschko. Someone with, immense speed, immense size, some of those dynamics to the game. Lucas Browne, for me, is not that person. Lucas Browne is not something that Wladimir Klitschko hasn't seen before, who hasn't got experience of dealing with before. Tyson Fury, I believe, represented something completely new to Wladimir Klitschko, that tested Klitschko out in ways he hadn't been tested before. Lucas Browne, for me, is not that. Klitschko's been there, seen it, done it, got the t-shirt, and knows how to beat fighters of that nature. You can't rule Lucas Browne out of the fight, but for me it's a fight I'd be confident picking Wladimir Klitschko in. Obviously, the disclaimer here is the fight hasn't been announced. It is confirmed on BoxRec, but it hasn't been formally announced by the two parties. So I don't want to give the impression that this is 100% a done deal, but it's certainly, if rumours are to be believed, looks like it's heading in that direction. I'm keen to discuss this fight. I think it's a fight that's going to split the public, actually. I think a lot of people out there really are going to believe that Lucas Browne can upset the apple cart here. I think they're going to believe that Wladimir Klitschko got old overnight. Browne's got the momentum, Browne's got the power, and he could upset the apple cart. I don't see it that way, but I'm imagining this is a fight that will split the boxing public. So let's begin the discussion here. Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. What percentage chance do you give Lucas Browne of winning this fight? How do you see it developing? If you've enjoyed this video, Would appreciate it if you take the time to hit the thumbs up button. If you're enjoying the conversation and you haven't done so before, would really appreciate it if you take the time to click subscribe. Thanks to everyone for watching the video. As always, I appreciate it.